Welcome to the Besties with Breasties podcast. Sarah Hall here. I am a certified health and wellness coach, athletic trainer, mom, and breast cancer survivor. I help women overcome their own mind drama to make mind shifts that open up the possibility for their most empowered and energetic life.
And I am Beth Wilmus, author, speaker, and founder of a human investment organization, otherwise known as a nonprofit, called Faith Through Fire. Our mission is to reduce the fear and anxiety that breast cancer patients feel and replace it with hope and a path toward thriving.
This podcast is about our experiences with breast cancer
and life after as young survivors and moms. Hey, Jamie.
Hey, Beth.
I've got Jamie here. She is our co-host for today. You might also remember that she is our boot camp facilitator.
Yes.
So thanks for being in studio.
Love it.
Yeah, it's so fun. Jamie's got she has podcasting experience. Plus, she's just a really great person to talk to about these kind of topics. So I'm excited to have you here. Recently, I went to the Young Survival Coalition conference in Georgia, I believe. I don't even know where it was. That's how good my brain is. But we attended this conference and there was a speaker. Because we had a booth there, I wasn't able to sit in on most of the sessions, but there was one at the end that I really wanted to sit in on, and it was about career change, because that's just something that we see so often in Faith Through Fire is women wanting to make career changes, but being scared to. Oh my gosh, she was so good. She was so good.
I remember you telling me about it. I'm excited to chat with her.
Well, I mean, what do you think about, this need or desire to kind of alter things after treatment?
I think it's real.
Yeah.
And I think that cancer gives us an opportunity to really look introspectively at our values and how we define ourselves and where there's room to move in that.
Right. Yeah. So today's guest is Kelly Burke. She's the inspiring founder of Career Slay. After being diagnosed with breast cancer at 29 years old, I think, she was pregnant with her first child and in the middle of a global pandemic. So thank you, COVID.
A lot going on.
A lot going on. But Kelly made a powerful decision. She said she was going to make some changes. And so that experience became the catalyst for helping others to stop settling and to start showing up fully in their careers and their lives. And through Career Slay, which is the company that she founded, she empowers people to pursue work that aligns with their values, sparks joy, and supports their authentic selves. So first, we're going to talk about Kelly's story.
Then we'll talk about how these experiences reshaped her perspective on her life and her career.
Yeah. And finally, the transition from a successful marketing career to the founding Career Slay. But before we jump in with Kelly, let's hear from our first sponsor. Are you feeling scared, overwhelmed, or lost post-treatment? Do you want to reclaim your life and thrive even better than before breast cancer? Faith Through Fire Survivorship Bootcamp is designed for breast cancer survivors who are committed to living their fullest lives. If you're ready to leap forward, seize personal growth, and redefine your journey, this bootcamp will provide the path. You might benefit from our bootcamp if the excitement of completing treatment has worn off, leaving you feeling unsure about your future. You feel confused by your new post-cancer identity and struggle to accept your, quote, new normal. You want to enjoy life again but feel stuck in a cycle of negative emotions. Or you feel disconnected from yourself, others, or God. Our bootcamp offers a structured roadmap that delves deep into 4 key areas crucial for post-cancer recovery and thriving: understanding trauma, cultivating a fighting spirit, managing anxiety and intrusive thoughts, and redefining and reshaping your identity so you can rediscover your joy and purpose in life. You can participate in person in St. Louis or online. To join our waitlist, visit faiththroughfire.org/survivorship-bootcamp. Well, welcome, Kelly. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we were talking about it before you hopped on, just what an impression you made when we heard you speak at the Young Survival Coalition conference about careers. It's something that really resonated with us because we see so many women, specifically after a breast cancer diagnosis, just grappling with career change and their desire to want to do it, but then feeling like they can't. And I thought your story was so interesting. So can you kind of share with those listening a little bit about your story and how it all came to be?
Absolutely. So back in 2019, I was just having a regular doctor's appointment physical, and my doctor felt this small bump in my breast. And she said, do you feel that? At first, I hadn't noticed it before, but after she pointed it out, I felt it too. And she advised, even though you didn't have any health history of breast cancer, just want to be cautious and get it checked out. So we scheduled an ultrasound. The radiologist was looking at the results and she said, it's just dense breast tissue. You're young, you're healthy. I was 30 years. Yeah, I was actually 29 at the time. And so it wasn't a big deal. And so I went about my life, just moving along. And as I was walking out of that appointment, I actually got a call from my work. And I was trying to apply for the Doritos brand manager position. So I work in marketing and I ended up getting that job. And it was really exciting. In the same day, I ended up getting promoted and I found out it was just a health scare. But little did I know that just a few months later, basically getting my dream job would turn into a nightmare. So it was about 6 months later and I was at a brand activation in LA, and I felt that same bump get a little bit bigger and more prominent. And so I just decided, hey, maybe it is something else. I ended up finding out that I was pregnant. And so I attributed the growth to my pregnancy hormones. And I told my husband, it's probably fine, but I'm just going to get it checked out just in case. So this was February 2020. And I remember being at work, getting a call from my doctor and, seeing it, excusing myself from I was about to walk into a Super Bowl meeting actually, and finding a small conference room. And then I remember hearing just this life-changing news that the bump was actually breast cancer. And it was so just shocking because I was 30 years old. I had never had any family history of breast cancer. I was young and healthy. And I was pregnant. Like that was the other thing too, is that I was so early in my pregnancy that I hadn't even told my parents that I was pregnant. And so now I had to share just the joyful news and the sad news all at once. And so it was really shocking. But there was something inside of me. I had always been a high achiever. And there was something inside of me that was just like, I'm going to outwork cancer. I'm just going to do everything that they tell me and I'm going to outwork cancer. And so the next few weeks were just this mad dash of, doctor's appointments, getting pricked, prodded, and poked by and tested by just numerous types of appointments and scans and doctors. And so we found out that it was stage 1A mucinous carcinoma. It was ER/PR positive, HER2 negative. And so it was pretty early on in the staging. And so I was really, really lucky that my doctor had found it at that physical, 6 months prior. And so I was aware of it and actually, had some, if she didn't point it out before, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. But just a few weeks after I'd gotten my diagnosis, the pandemic broke out. And so everything within my treatment plan changed. Originally I was supposed to go through chemo and then I was going to have my baby and then do surgery and then go into hormone therapy. But because of the uncertainty of the pandemic, basically we had to just take it day by day. And I remember a week prior to my mastectomy, my doctor called and said, hey, we're changing the plan. We want to get the cancer out of you ASAP. We don't know what's going to happen. COVID is so uncertain. The hospitals are trying to reserve their, capacity for COVID patients. And so we want to just get it out of you ASAP. So at the height of what I felt was my dream job in my career, I basically, got thrown a grenade and I thought that my career was just absolutely going to get blown up because of cancer. And so I ended up telling my team, scrambling to tell my team, a week out from getting my surgery and trying to get all of my ducks in a row. And it was the first time in my entire career that I was able to take time off of work for such an extended period of time. And so it was like 6 weeks off on short-term disability after my mastectomy. And I remember thinking, gosh, I feel so relieved, not just because the cancer is out of my body, but because it was the first time ever that I had a legitimate excuse to like rest and not do work. And I knew that that wasn't normal. And it was just a wild experience because I remember walking into the hospital and it being like a zombie apocalypse. There was like no one there, just like a sign pointing to the left, to like check me in, and feeling so alone through that time. But knowing that the only person that was with me the entire time was my baby. And so it was just a really emotional, scary, transformative time. Luckily, I was able to beat cancer. The mastectomy was successful. We did some additional testing on the tumor that determined that I did not need to do chemotherapy. And so I was able to basically not relax because we were in the pandemic, but just enjoy the rest of my pregnancy with peace of mind that I was now cancer free. So I delivered a healthy baby girl in September of 2020. And it's now almost 5 years. Actually, it is 5 years that I have been cancer free. And so in that experience, what I thought cancer was going to do is I thought it was going to crush my career. But in fact, it became this catalyst for my greatest growth. And what I mean by that is that I just had this like this urgency to fulfill my second lease on life and do as much as I could to achieve as much as I can. I ended up getting promoted 3 times after being diagnosed with cancer, ended up getting to speak on marketing industry stages, working on Super Bowl ads, and really just thriving in my career.
Here's the part that I think is so interesting. You said that when you took leave and you didn't have to work, it was the first time in your life that you felt relief, that you could kind of just care for yourself and what your needs were. And then you came back into your career and then went after it, which I think is like, that was the part where I was like so interested in your story, because it's like most women we know are grappling with that. I just need a rest. I need a rest. I can't keep this go, 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 go. And you felt that, but then you decided to go back into, and I relate to that. And I wonder, Jamie, if you do too, that whole new lease on life, you know, it's like, okay, life is precious. I'm going to embrace every moment. I'm going to go after every dream. And was that because that's what you felt like your dreams were? Your dream was your career at that point? Or what made you go back into go mode to get those 3 promotions after you had kind of felt the relief of not having to work?
Yeah, I think what ended up happening was I felt like I could finally show up as my authentic self at work. And instead of feeling like I had to, be perfect and, be this high achieving perfectionist, I really just was able to be a more authentic leader. And as a result of that, I think it made me just, I don't know, like care a little bit less, in the sense of like care about what other people think less. But it made me emboldened to just like go for it. And the other thing too is that I realized through my experience and the fact that it was cancer during the pandemic while pregnant, I realized how intertwined our personal and our professional lives were. Mm-hmm. And so there was part of me that felt I needed to protect my stability. I needed to protect my career and my job, because while I was going through cancer treatment, we were in the pandemic. My husband was unable to work because he worked in an industry that was severely impacted by, the social distancing measures. And I felt like I got to be the one to make sure that we're doing okay. And so I realized that there was just so much of my identity and my worth that was wrapped up in my job. And I thought I had this second chance. Let me make the most out of it, so I don't find myself in a situation where, we're both out of work. And I think that was kind of the psychological switch that happened in my head.
This is such a juxtaposition from watching Beth's journey. I don't know if you can take 30 seconds. You made such a different move, but I'm hearing a theme that I wanted to come back to Beth, after the choice you made when you were diagnosed?
I mean, I really resonated with Kelly's story because when I got done with cancer treatment and I tried to go back to my old career in sales, like I just didn't feel the same desire or passion. All my values were different, right? So whereas before I was very focused on climbing the corporate ladder and making a certain amount of money, now that didn't seem to matter to me anymore. I was having difficulty selling people things I didn't think they needed. And so, but the idea of stepping away from that felt so heavy because I was half of my household income. And so we had grown very comfortable. And so it's like, well, I can't just leave. You know, we have expenses and we have this and we have that. And I knew my husband would originally, like if I brought this to him, he was going to panic a little bit because I was already different post-cancer. So he was grappling with the new version of me. And then if I were to totally upend our lives, I think that would have been really anxiety provoking for him. And so these were all the things that I was thinking about, like, I want to, but I can't. But then there was just a part of me that, and I felt responsible. I needed to make the responsible decision of staying in it and doing the things because that's what financially made sense for our family. And I don't know if that's where you're going with it, Jamie, but that's kind of what we see over and over and over again with women in Faith Through Fire is they want to make a change, but they feel guilt and they feel fear about taking the plunge.
Well, what I noticed about both of your stories was permission to pause and then permission to move or to go deeper. But at the core of it, it was authentic. And that's where that purpose and joy comes from. And I think that as women, we're such doers and we're always thinking about other people. And that permission to just come up for air and try and get some clarity and perspective is so powerful.
Okay, so now you're in these meetings and you're really kind of living the dream and you're getting the promotions. And then, so when I was listening to your story, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's the opposite of where I went because I decided to walk away from it all. But then your story changed.
Uh-oh, plot twist.
Plot twist. Plot twist.
Yeah,
So talk a little bit about that. Like you're kind of doing all the things that you set your mind to, but when did something change?
Right. So as successful and shiny as it looked on the outside, on the inside, I was really suffering. And my body was giving me signals that something was not right. So the first time I had a signal, basically I was really burnt out and stressed out and my body broke out in stress hives. And I thought that I was allergic to something. I asked my oncologist, like, hey, this isn't normal. Like I've got rashes all over my body. And he was like, I think that's stress hives. And so that was like my first indication, like, hey, maybe I need to pull back and reassess, like, what am I doing? How can I like manage my stress in a better way? And then the second time it happened, I had been under, gotten like this big promotion, was under a lot of stress and was starting to have these headaches every single day. And what started out like as like a little crick in my neck became just this throbbing pain that like crawled into my brain. And so this was going on for about 8 weeks now, and talked to my doctor again. And he said, given your health history, let's make sure and be cautious. And so I was in the MRI machine, rolling back, about to get my brain scanned, and realizing that this could have been totally avoidable. It just was this flashback of emotion and feelings of when I was, going through my cancer journey, and realizing that this is so familiar, but it could have been totally avoidable. And I did this to myself. And so in that moment, the technician pushes the button and he's like, hey, Mrs. Burke, how's it going in there? And I'm like, it's going good. Aside from the fact that you're scanning my brain for cancer. And luckily it was not cancer. It was just tension headaches. But it was this wake up call to me that, I needed to make a change. My burnout was not a badge of honor as much as I thought that, the harder you work, the more successful you'll be. And that was the narrative I told myself. It just was no longer serving me and what I defined as success for myself. And so the third kind of factor in this whole journey was I was traveling a lot for work, and I came home one evening and was tucking my daughter into bed, and I asked her, how can I be a better mommy? And she looked at me and she said, don't leave us. And it was the most crushing thing because I had done, I thought I was doing all of this to show her that, hey, you can achieve anything in your career. And that didn't matter to her. What mattered to her was me being present and me being around. And it was really a wake up call for me to look at my priorities and see what is it that matters most and how do I really define success. And so at the end of 2023, I decided to take a full career break and just leave my job and take some time off and figure out what was I going to do next.
I want to get into career slay and your pivot, and also just generally talk about women and why they struggle so much with making a similar choice. But before we do that, you guys want to do Boobs in the News?
Let's go.
Boobs in the News is a fun segment where we read funny tweets by real people or ridiculous news stories.
Boobs in the news, boobs in the news, boobs in the news.
All right. You ready for this one?
Yep.
The title of this is 2 men were found dead from exposure after looking for Sasquatch. I feel bad laughing. Sort of.
Cut that out.
No, we're not cutting it out.
We're not cutting it out.
No, we're not cutting it out. 2 men from Oregon who went missing after going on a search for Sasquatch have been found dead. Oh my gosh. Washington state officials announced Saturday. The men, both from Portland. Okay, well, that explains some of this. Sorry, Portland. The men, both from Portland, were reported missing by a family member. Oh gosh, on Christmas Day. What?
This is getting dark.
I know. And we're set to return from searching for the legendary creature on Christmas Eve. When was this story? A search was launched and a vehicle associated with the 2 men was found off a road. After a 3-day search involving more than 60 people, both men were found in a national forest. Their cause of death appears to be because of exposure, because of weather conditions and ill preparedness.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, if you're going to go look for Sasquatch, you
prepared.
best be prepared. You don't go out there looking for Sasquatch without having some extra socks and a coat. Everybody knows that.
Oh, man.
Oh, my gosh. Sasquatch, commonly known as Bigfoot, is a large, hairy figure that resembles a human and is thought to live in the northwestern parts of the U.S. and Canada. The existence of Bigfoot has been debated for decades. Really? Is this a thing?
It's not in my world.
And many have reported sightings of the creature. More than 700 reports of Bigfoot sightings in Washington state have been submitted to the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. Oh, there's an organization. This is where our tax dollars go. And listen to this. How do you say that? Skamania. Skamania. In Skamania County, harming Bigfoot is punishable by a $1,000 fine and can include jail time.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
There's a fine.
There's a fine
for
harming Bigfoot.
Who we've never found.
Right. Well, there's been, Jamie, there's been
sightings.
700 sightings. I'm wondering if they're all coming out of the same mental institution.
Oh, man.
I'm serious.
Hey, maybe they went out doing something.
I want to know how they get funding for this. The fact that there's an organization, they're soliciting funds for this.
Maybe the organization is the boob in this story.
There's so many. There's so many boobs in this story. I can't even. I'm sorry that those men lost their lives. That's really tragic. But as their family members, can you imagine having to explain to people how they perished?
No.
I think I would lie.
They went on a hike.
They were unfortunately they got lost. They got turned around. That sounds a lot more.
Yikes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, dude. That's really scary. And I'm going to now want to go check Doge and see if my tax dollars are paying for this. All right. There's your boobs in the news.
Boobs in the news. Boobs in the news. Boobs in the news.
We're back. I want to get to the change that you made after you step away. You're like, I'm done. I need a break and reassess what I want to do next. Why do you think, I know your story's not unique because I felt that way, Sarah felt that way, you felt that way, Jamie's felt that way. We deal with women every day who know that trying to do it all and be really good at their careers comes at a cost and it's making them or keeping them sick. But they're so fearful to make that change. And let's talk about calculated risk versus being irresponsible, right? Because that's what a lot of women are grappling with is when is it okay to make a change? And I'm curious what your thoughts are about that because, there is insurance to take into account. There is financial issues that you need to have. Like for example, my husband and I, we did a lot of pre-work to make sure we were debt free, that we could somehow live on one salary, even though it was going to be drastically different. We would have to go down to like one car for a while. I mean, we made some major concessions to make it work. How about you? Did you guys find yourself in a similar situation?
Yeah, I was the breadwinner in our family, so that made everything a little bit more challenging to even fathom like making a change like this. So after I had that MRI scan, I basically came back to my husband and was like, hey, I need to make a big change. I need a break. And I haven't had a break since getting diagnosed with breast cancer and going this hard. And it had been about like a 3-year span where I just was really hustling very hard. And he was so supportive. So we planned for it. We planned for it financially. We made sure that what he was bringing in was going to be enough to cover our expenses. And I knew that it wasn't going to be forever, that I was not going to bring in an income. So we planned for about like a 6-month break, but about the 3-month mark, that's when I started my company. And so it was really having that time and that space to just step away from things. It gave me the creativity and the like energy I needed to figure out a different path.
Yeah, it's amazing when you give yourself permission to breathe, like what can come out of that. It's so terrifying when you make the initial decision, but then there's just that weight lifted and then it just frees you up to just pursue, meaningful work and things that you're excited about. And I think that that's what I want women to know too, is that you think of it as like, oh my gosh, I'll never be whole again, or I'll never get back to the place I was. Well, that's true. I mean, I will never make what I made before. And I'm okay with that, because what I care about is different now. But it does do something to you to allow you to have the space to really pursue what is going to be good for you and your family. So explain Career Slay for those listening. What is Career Slay? What made you create it? What is it all about?
Absolutely. So about 3 months into my career break, I decided that I started to explore what was it that really brought me joy in my career. And I'd previously started a podcast where I interviewed people who loved what they did, asking them how they got there and what they learned along the way. And that was called Career Slay. I was still in full-time employment, but had this like side project. And I knew that like having these conversations was what really brought me joy. And so I wanted to explore, how can I do this full time and talk to people about their careers and basically coach them. And that's what led me into executive coaching. So Career Slay is an executive coaching company that helps high performers courageously develop their careers and become the fearless leaders that they were meant to be. So as part of the Career Slay platform, I do 3 things. I operate my podcast, which is called Career Slay. I coach individuals from a career coaching and leadership coaching standpoint. And then I also do speaking. So I do a lot of public speaking and sharing my story and motivating and inspiring individuals that they can make a change, that they can overcome burnout, and that it's up to them to really design that life work alignment and come up with a definition of success that aligns with your values. So it's such an exciting time to be able to do work that I feel is so meaningful and impactful. And I really feel so much energy from doing this purpose-driven work. So
I think it's so interesting because a lot of people, and there were people in your session too, that are like, well, this worked for you, but it wouldn't work for me because, and there's a lot of self-limiting beliefs. And even just recently, Jamie and I were doing a boot camp with survivors, and one of the participants was talking about how she was a single mom. And she was talking about how if she had her way, she would go back to school and I forget what career she wanted to pursue, but she wanted to go back to school and get a degree in something else and then kind of start this different career. But she's like, but I can't because I have a 15-year-old at home and, I'm a single mom and all these things. But what was interesting about this is I was like, well, your son's 15, right? And she's like, yeah. And I said, is he planning on going to college? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, that's 3 years from now. 3 years from now, I'm like, you could be planning this entire time, these 3 years. What's 3 years? In my mind, 3 years is nothing.
Yeah.
You could be planning this entire time for when your son goes to college, and then you can go and pursue this new dream of yours, But I think we have so many self-limiting beliefs about what's possible. My circumstances are different. I can't do it because of this or that. I mean, what do you say to people like that?
Yeah. And I, as a coach, I always like to meet people where they are. And I know that growth is so uncomfortable. So what I like to tell people is that you can be scared and still move. And what I was telling myself through that experience of, cancer, pandemic, and pregnancy was that I'm just going to do the next right thing. I'm just going to take one step in the right direction, and I'm going to do the next right thing. And you start making these small changes and small movements, and you find yourself on the other side of the big challenge. And so there's so many ways to get through it. But I think really having someone to support you, to motivate you, to guide you is really important. And another thing that I like to share with my clients is have a personal board of directors, people that are in your life that you really trust, that can guide you and advise you through these big transitions in your life. Because when you're going through the challenge, it feels so scary and it feels like impossible. And then you get through it and you look back and you're like, wow, I'm so much stronger because of it on the other side. So really at the end of the day, what getting cancer at 30 taught me was that we only have one life. And I know this is so cliche, but there's no dress rehearsal. And we've only got this one shot to live a life that brings us joy. And it's up to you to make that decision. No one else is going to make that decision for you.
Amen to that. I want to wrap up with where people can find you. But before we do that, let's hear from our second sponsor.
Thrivent is a proud sponsor of Faith Through Fire. Thrivent believes money is a tool and not a goal. The Gateway Financial Group with Thrivent is local to the St. Louis area and can work with you to create a financial strategy that reflects your priorities and helps you protect the things that matter to you, like family and giving back. Please call 314-783-4214 to schedule a free consultation with one of Thrivent's Gateway Financial Advisors.
All right, Kelly, we're back. Where can people find you?
Absolutely. So please reach out to me at careerslay.com. You can book a free discovery call if you're interested in coaching, but I'm also on all the socials at CareerSlay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed my time here.
Okay, guys, until next time.
See ya.
Thank you for being a listener of the Besties with Breasties podcast. If this podcast had a positive impact on your journey, leave us a review or consider becoming a supporter. You can donate with the link in the show notes or at faiththroughfire.org. This episode was hosted by Sarah Hall and Beth Wilmus, audio and production edits by Innovative Frequencies.